everybody, and welcome to this week's brand new episode of the Geek Buddies. Hey! We're back at it this week, knee deep in the middle of CINEMACON week over there in Vegas, and we are here to talk about so many things that have happened here in the world of geekery. We're going to talk about that Flash trailer. We're going to talk about the Flash first reactions. A lot of people seeing the movie as we're recording this the last night. We're also going to jump into some other trailers that have happened here, and also some Book of Boba Fett, Temeura Morrison griping down in New Zealand, or possibly ball busting, depending on your interpretation of his comments. And we're also going to get into some James Gunn stuff as we're on the eve of Guardians of the Galaxy 3 coming out very, very soon. So all that is happening here on this particular episode of the Geek Buddies. But let's introduce ourselves. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the channel.
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer, where you can see some of our current work on Netflix right now with Strawberry Shortcake, Barry in the Big City, seasons 1 and 2.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, thank you all so much for joining us here. For those of you who are new, welcome aboard to the Geek Buddies train. We're always picking up new people every week, which is great. For those of you who've been with us the whole time, thank you very much for sticking around. The way the show works, each of us brings up a geek news item. We take a break and then talk about our main topic. And our main topic is the James Gunn massive article that was in the Hollywood Reporter detailing about his incredible journey from when he was let go of the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise all the way to where he's coming back to direct it and now in charge over there at DC Pictures, of course, with the Flash coming out as well as a part of that, as we're entering into a new version of the DC universe there under James Gunn and Peter Safran. But gentlemen, how are you feeling? Let's check in with you. What's going on in your worlds? How are you feeling? What's the prevalent attitude that you've got coming into the show today? Vogel, I'll start with you.
What is my prevalent attitude? She's tired. She's tired. I spent last weekend in Florida with my family and my found family. I took a bunch of my gay besties to Florida, which currently has a travel advisory against going there for gay people, but we said, hey, let's throw caution to the wind and go to Florida anyway. And took my gay besties to meet my parents, and my brother and sisters were there as well, and we had a lovely weekend of gay frivolity. There were caftans involved. There were rompers involved. I ate a lot. I drank a lot. I got back late Monday night, and I've been catching up on work ever since. So I am satisfied emotionally.
Wow.
But I am physically tired.
Incredible.
If Baymax asked you if you were satisfied with your care, what would you say?
I would say, you just wrap me in those big puffy Michelin Man arms of yours and just pat me on my head, baby. That's what I
want. Shannon, what's your prevalent attitude? How are you feeling, brother? How are things in your world?
You know, I'm a little tired as well. This one particular show, as some of our audience may know, there is a potential writer's strike on the horizon, along with negotiations coming up for the DGA, as well as SAG-AFTRA. So there is a feeling in the industry, they're trying to crank out as much as they can. They're trying to get as much done because the last time we had a writer's strike, which was back in like 2008, it lasted 5 months, 4 months, 5 months, something like that. So I have been auditioning a lot for stuff, and that one particular show, which I don't want to say it just in case, but one particular show keeps bringing me back, and the roles keep getting bigger, but I keep not getting it. So it's nice, and I also finished a wonderful acting class. I haven't taken a class like this in about 20 years, and it was just really, really nice. I was like, okay, so this blankety blank sitcom doesn't want me. What are you going to do? And then I found out I'm on hold for a film that is potentially going to shoot in Texas. So it's like, man, I really hope this strike doesn't happen.
God, I can't wait to send you a t-shirt. Everything's bigger in Texas except Shannon McClung.
Oh, there we go.
Already, right off the bat.
He's filled up his tank. He's ready to go.
That woke me up. Here we go. Geek Buddies. Let's do it.
Well, fingers crossed. All right, well, here we go. Let's get into it. Michael, I think you got our first story. What's going on?
Well, Mandalorian season 3 has wrapped up. We have discussed it. Lots of people have discussed it. A lot of people were upset about season 3. A lot of people love season 3. Of those people who were upset about season 3, apparently Boba Fett is one of them. Temeura Morrison, our good buddy chilling over there in Jabba's palace, expressed a little bit of disappointment about The Mandalorian's latest season. Mainly because he was expecting to be in it. He says that he was supposed to be in Mandalorian season 3, but nobody rang me, he says. I was waiting for the phone call in New Zealand, waiting and wanting to give up. He said that Pedro Pascal's appearance in Book of Boba Fett, well, the Mando guy stole a few chapters of my book. I'm sure this guy is ruining my show, but I couldn't say anything. I'm not the writer, so I have to bear it, I guess. So there you go. Now,
yes,
Kiwis are weird people, Maybe is he just having a good time? Everyone in New Zealand, let us know. Is he having a good time, or is he really pissed, or is it somewhere in between? Because if I was Boba Fett, I would just be happy that I was where I was at this point.
Yeah, it's an interesting because I saw some people on Twitter who actually were in the room for this, and they were claiming that he was saying it in jest and that it's getting lost in translation. But, as Shakespeare once said, there is always truth, a little bit of truth in jest. And so maybe there is a feeling, and he's a proud actor. He's a proud member of Star Wars, certainly having been Jango Fett, and maybe he felt this was a little weird. A lot of people have criticized. I don't see many people who have defended the Mandalorian episodes appearing in the Book of Boba Fett. And maybe it was a little bit of a pride thing where you needed to bring in someone else's episodes to put him into my show, where I didn't even appear, I think, in either of those 2 episodes. Or if I did, it was really a small amount of time. Yet you call it the Book of Boba Fett, but we've got the Mandalorian all over it. Maybe there's a little bit of bruised ego or bruised pride. And I don't know where would he have fit in Mandalorian season 3? It was already just stocked with people. I don't know where it would have ended up. Shannon, what do you think about these comments?
I mean, personally, even though it sounds like he was being sarcastic. I think he's right. Yeah. I mean, having the Book of Boba Fett have at least a chapter and a half that Boba Fett was sort of inessential.
Yeah.
He's right. I mean, obviously, is this Pedro Pascal's fault? Of course not. Right. It sounds like, was this the creative team's fault? If the rumors are to be true, probably not. It sounded like this came down from on high, and there was nothing that they could do. I do agree with you, John. I don't know. Looking at season 3 of The Mandalorian, looking at what it was, I don't know where you could have put him in. But again, looking at Book of Boba Fett, I'm like, where are you going to put Din Djarin in here? I'm like, oh, you're just going to take a chunk out of Boba Fett's story and devote it to Mando and Grogu. I think most folks would probably say the creative decisions that were made with Book of Boba Fett, not just giving a chunk of the section to another character, but some of the way a lot of it played out, it didn't turn out as well as they probably were hoping. Yeah. There is a scenario where the first 2 episodes, especially that second episode, that was more along the lines of what we were going to get. Yeah. And it didn't turn out that way. So even though it does sound like he's kind of poking fun a little bit, as you said, John, every joke contains a little bit of truth.
I think he's just having fun. I
don't
think he actually.
Okay.
Actor. I don't think that. I don't think he's right. I don't think that just because someone shows up in your show, it's not Hollywood's not tit for tat.
Quid pro quo.
Look, two chopped. Okay, I guess I'm going over to get there. But no, I think he's just having fun. I think most actors are like they're happy for the work that they get. Every actor, of course, wants to get more work and would love bigger roles. But I don't think that he's stewing in a Sarlacc pit about it. I think he's probably just fine. I think he's all right. And yeah, like, look, do I think that 2 episodes of Book of Boba Fett should have been The Mandalorian? No. Do I think they were the 2 best episodes of that season? Sure. So, like, I don't know. But look, I am sure this is not the last that we have seen of Boba Fett regardless. I'm sure he's showing up somewhere, probably in a Dave Filoni movie coming soonish to a theater near us.
Oh yeah, good point. Well, also, I mean, we're in a little bit of a Temeura-sance, right? Because he's about to be in the Flash movies, or he's in the Flash movie as Curry, Thomas Curry. So, right, he's going to be. So we're going to see Temeura again, at least there. He also said, though, I think there was a few changes going on when he was asked about the future for Boba, because season 2 has not been announced. And by the way, season 4 of Mandalorian has not been announced, even though Favreau says he's down and working on ideas for a season 4. He went on to say, I think there's a few changes going on. We also come under the big umbrella known as Disney now, too. So it's one of the last few conversations we had in LA. The conversation started like, oh, look, we're having a few changes. We're having a few cutbacks. And when you hear that at the other end of the line, it's no good trying to negotiate any more money. That's for sure. So we'll see what happens. And apparently Disney was busy with their CINEMACON presentation and could not respond for comment. So that's interesting too. I mean, that feels like a bit of a passive aggressive shot, doesn't it? Saying, well, Disney's got no money, they're talking. So don't look for me anytime soon. It seems like he's come to terms with that. It feels like. What do you guys think?
I mean, I don't know if it's a financial thing, but I think based off of the critical and fan reception to the Book of Boba Fett, I don't think anyone's banging the drum hard to see another season of that show, despite the fact that we might like to see some of those characters again, not just Boba Fett, but also Fennec Shand. I don't think a second season of Boba Fett was in the cards at the end of that season.
I mean, like, here's the real. Like, here's like what really the issue is that Din Djarin is the Boba Fett we always wanted.
Right.
Like, if when you loved Empire Strikes Back and you were like, who is this fucking badass? He's awesome. And then he got knocked out into the Sarlacc pit and you were like, okay, well, that's that. Right. Din Djarin he is the badass bounty hunter, got a heart of gold, but can fight with the best of them. Like, he's sort of taken the role of what most people grew up loving about Boba Fett.
Right.
And there's a lot of reasons that Book of Boba Fett didn't really land, but I think one of the issues they've had is they were trying to move the character of Boba Fett into this different area as this honorable criminal overlord. Like, I'm going to do Jabba's thing right. And I don't think they've quite yet, and I think I do mean yet, because I think they can do it. They haven't quite defined for us what Boba Fett is now.
Yeah.
Like, he had some visions about his dad on Camino. He trained with the Tusken Raiders. He tried to run a criminal empire. It didn't go great. He rode a Rancor.
Yeah.
Then he kind of said to Fennec Shand in the last 5 minutes, maybe I don't want to run a criminal empire. Let's go party somewhere. Like, it was like, they never really said this is who Boba Fett is now. So I think the reason there's no season 2 is it was kind of like it didn't land the way that probably Disney and Lucasfilm wanted it to land. But Boba Fett as a character, I kind of feel is a giant question mark for all of us. Like, he's not the awesome bounty hunter anymore because Din is. So what is he going to be?
It's a good point, Mike. Yeah, absolutely. But there was a hashtag that was trending on Twitter, Shannon, to put it into your mind. Hashtag Bring Back Boba Fett popped up a couple of days ago and has been embraced by some of the Star Wars accounts on Twitter. So some of them are trying to say that, but then there's a pushback because a lot of people responded to these people saying, like, we did bring him back. You all didn't watch and you criticized it, and then brought up people's tweets who are saying bring back Boba Fett. They brought up their old tweets bashing the Boba Fett series, going like, why do you want to bring back something that you yourself bashed? So you're seeing that kind of battle on social media because Star Wars fans love to fight each other in the pit, in a Rancor pit. So you see that happening. And I agree. I think the problem at the end of the day was, look, Temeura's an awesome man. He could probably rip me limb from limb, but he's a little long in the tooth. And people weren't gravitating to that. People weren't necessarily enjoying that. And it isn't like we saw. We're going to talk about the Equalizer or John Wick or anything. It just he looked his age. He felt his age. Whereas you see someone like Fennec Shand, she was kicking ass all over the place, and they didn't. She's incredible, but like with Temeura, it felt like it was a little bit like, what are we going to do here? And I think you're right, Mike. I think actually I've never thought this before, and you were 100% right. The Mandalorian is the Boba Fett we wanted, and and that's a younger actor, younger character, younger person playing him. So in the end, that's a tough thing to fight. Even though Temeura did a nice job in season 2 of Book of Boba Fett when he was in there, and then and I thought he did as well as you could, considering some of the failures of the story beats or the storylines in the Book of Boba Fett.
But I think you bring up an interesting point too, and I think it does sort of speak towards something that Star Wars should consider. I mean, you mentioned the Equalizer, which we're going to talk about the trailer for Equalizer 3. You mentioned John Wick. Those movies, one of the reasons that those movies work, John Wick in particular, is because the goal of that movie is, let me show you some absolutely gorgeously badass choreographed fighting.
Yeah.
So like the story is built around, we're going to give you this character, and we have a director of photography, we have a cinematographer that just knows how to make this look badass.
Right.
And Star Wars, as they're sort of finding their stable of directors, like there's a lot of things you need to be able to do. Well, can you do special effects? Can you do visual effects? Can you match this tone? Can you do this? But maybe what Boba Fett needed, rather than Robert Rodriguez and his shiny hot rods on Tatooine, was somebody who knows how to go in there and go, we're doing John Wick on Tatooine. Boba Fett is out, and he is pissed, and he's cleaning up the town. Right. And each week was going to be a showcase for these elaborate fight scenes happening in Jabba's palace up in here. That would have been a thing. Now, there's a lot of other things that Boba Fett could be too. I'm not saying that's the answer. Right. but when you're aiming for it, I just think Robert Rodriguez ultimately didn't give us a clear anything.
Yeah. The Jolly Rancher crew did not help. Okay, anyway, we'll see what happens with Temeura. We'll see if he's back. We'll see if these comments bear fruit or if they're just in jest. I think as things go along here in Star Wars for sure, because we're not done with Star Wars TV series anytime soon. All right, let's take a quick break and we'll jump into our next topic right after this. All right, I forgot already. Is it my turn or your turn? Whose turn? Is it my turn or your turn?
It's your turn. Okay, it's your turn. That was the theme from the television series.
Oh, nice. Good call.
So aren't you clever?
Aren't you quick? So anyway, CINEMACON is happening this week in Las Vegas. I'm so bummed I'm missing out on it. And one of the things that they showed, kind of like they showed Top Gun Maverick last year, they showed The Flash. And now a lot of people are saying this is an unfinished cut, but that's what they saw last night. So maybe there's more editing to do. I've seen some critics saying that in their reaction. So we're going to talk about these first reactions to The Flash. I'm going to share my screen here and bring these up and see what you all think about these reactions. We're going to start off with Eric Davis here from Fandango saying DC's The Flash is tremendous. Forget DC. It is without a doubt among the best superhero films ever made. An all-timer, inventive storytelling, fantastic action sequences, so many nerdy details. I'm in tears at the end. Everything you want from a superhero film and more. My friend who's at the Hollywood Critics Association, Scott Menzel, one of the founders there, said The Flash is hands down one of the best superhero films of all time. No joke. The Flash is the ultimate movie-going experience. And as it has a little bit of everything. Action, emotion, heart, humor, and plenty of nostalgia. Ezra Miller's phenomenal, as dual Barry Allen's. Let's see. Rob Keys here saying, just watch The Flash at CinemaCon. It has some stuff in it you will not believe, and it showcases much more Barry Allen's powers. It is indeed one of DC's best and fits nicely as a bridge story between the old and new DCU franchise. It's also the funniest DC movie for sure. Let's see what else. Who else I want to bring up here? Brandon Davis says, damn, The Flash is good. It's super inventive, both visually and in concept. The dynamic of two Barry Allens is crazy well done. Scott Mann saying The Flash is awesome. One of the very best DC movies. A perfect blend of action, heart, and humor. Taylor Gonzalez saying The Flash was incredible, full of heroes, heart, humor, and hope. I cried several times. Wow. And I know that Jeff Snyder, also my co-host on the Hot Mic, had some thoughts that weren't as positive. So just to kind of balance this out a little bit, I want to read you his 2 cents on The Flash and what he thought about it. And his was not as glowing overall about The Flash. He said that the first hour really works, and then it just gets real muddled for about 30 to 40 minutes in the second half of the film. But ultimately, it is a good film. It just doesn't 100% hit the mark as I was expecting. So, gentlemen, you hear these? I mean, Jeff seems to be one of the few critics who are not screaming the praises of this movie. What are your thoughts when you hear these first reactions about The Flash?
It's encouraging that a movie that they've been showing test screenings for a long time.
Yes,
I
yes,
mean,
yes.
prior to the Warner Brothers Discovery merger,
Yeah.
I knew someone that had gone to a test screening and had said like it is just fantastic, echoing a lot of the statements that you've already made, John.
Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
one of the best superhero movies of all time. To know that at the time it was going to be viewed as a bit of a reset for DC, and now them basically saying the same thing, that they had gone in and done some additional work to help it connect, potentially connect to Gunn and Safran's DC universe. The fact that you have this great film, and it sounds like they maybe had to put it into a little bit of a blender and add some additional stuff. So the fact that the praise, not universally, but the praise seems to be pretty overwhelming, that is no small feat. I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like to be Andy Muschietti and to have this, you've done this great thing, and then you see like, oh no, we got to go in and change a bunch of stuff. It's like, no, don't, it's perfect. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. You know, I had looked at some of the reactions online as well, and I mean, I could not find one that that was similar to Jeff's.
Yeah.
I got super high praise and really good praise. Like but to what Jeff was saying, I didn't see anything like that. But it's really encouraging. So, you know, The Flash has had a very, very long journey to get to the big screen through several different creative teams. So the fact that Barry Allen is finally going to get a big screen adventure is really exciting.
Yeah. Now, Mike, what are your thoughts to these reactions?
This is going to be Spider-Man No Way Home.
Ooh, okay.
Like, there's not been an early reaction like this in Spider-Man No Way Home. And we all hold Spider-Man No Way Home as one of the best superhero movies that's out there, because it is. But like, this is how big this movie's gonna be. Like, it's just like this is one of those, you can take it to the bank that people are going to lose their shit over this movie. Like, we're all going to do our spoiler review of this movie, and the three of us are going to be talking about how fucking great it was. We'll have our quibbles, we'll have our whatever, but we're going to be like, God damn, if DC had been doing this the whole time, we wouldn't be rebooting it right now. But, you know, like, I think that's where we're going to be with it. I think even little things like when we last month or so, when we talked about that Ben Affleck article, Ben Affleck says that he's in this movie for like 5 minutes, but it's the best 5 minutes he's played Bruce Wayne, that he finally figured it out. He got it right. Like, there's just, from top to bottom, every single thing you hear, we've been hearing, like Shannon said, we've been hearing for months and months and months that this movie is that good. We've heard that that's why they bent over backwards to work things out with Ezra Miller so that they could go on their apology tour and do what they needed to do to kind of like, you know, smooth all that over, because they were like, there's no way we're not releasing this movie. So we've been hearing it. Now we're getting the official first reactions from people, and the first reactions are lining up with exactly what we've been hearing for months and months and months.
Yeah. I mean, I some of the ones that aren't even on Twitter yet, some of my friends who are there DM'd me or texted me their reactions, and pretty much the same. Enjoying the action, enjoying the storytelling, the emotion of the film. Apparently the father-son stuff is a real big part of this movie. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what we're going to get there, but also the cameos and the time that they spend, all this kind of stuff with the older characters from the Zack Snyderverse coming in. That's going to be interesting how they move it all and weave it all together. So, so far the reactions have been incredibly positive. And look, Spider-Man No Way Home, just looked it up. It made $1.916 billion. Okay, that's what I'm looking at right now. $1.916 billion. I said that The Flash is going to break $2 billion. People say I'm crazy. Am I crazy that it might break $2 billion? People have a certain love for DC films and DC characters. Do you think that The Flash, because it's weaving all these universes together, basically the Snyderverse people, the separate, the possibly launching a little bit of hints of what we're going to get the James Gunn verse. Do we think this is do we think that's going to help it get into the $2 billion range, or am I crazy?
It might. I mean, I actually think you make a good point. Like, look, I don't like the Zack Snyder movies particularly. I don't like Man of Steel. am I excited about them bringing Zod back for this? 100%.
Mm.
And we've said this 1,000 times. Like, I'm definitely one of those, like, once you put something on the table, you got to use what's there. You don't get to pretend it didn't happen just because you don't get to pull a J.J. Abrams and Rise of Skywalker. Like, you've got to use what you got. So, so I think that even though I don't love Man of Steel, the fact that from that moment that first trailer came out and you're like, oh, he fucked up the universe, Barry fucked up the universe, and now Zod doesn't have a Superman to fight, that's brilliant. Right. So I think that that's going to really satisfy Snyder fans because they get to see a continuation of their story, but I don't think it's going to alienate the non-Snyder fans. And then I think the movie also has that thing going for it that Spider-Man No Way Home did, which is Spider-Man No Way Home was like, we're going to bring in Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and their stories. And everyone was like, oh my God, I can't believe. And even the most casual comic book fan thought that was cool. Like, people who didn't even understand the multiverse at that time were still like, there's 3 Spider-Men in this movie and that's super cool. And you got those emotional moments about with like Toby and Doc Ock and with Andrew and the whole Gwen Stacy thing. And I think the same thing is here with Michael Keaton. Like, you don't even have to be a hardcore comic book fan to be like, yeah, that's Batman. Like, that's Batman. The Batman's in this movie. Like, and so I think that, like, it's a combination of all those things. It has all the pieces that No Way Home did, where you're like, there's no possible way that you piled all of this into one movie and made it work. And just like with Spider-Man No Way Home, it like, or maybe you did because everyone's saying you made it work.
Shannon, what do you think?
I think 2 billion is a bit of a stretch. But I do think it could do Top Gun Maverick numbers. Which that was like more in that like 1.5. Because I do agree that bringing Michael Keaton back, like people, on the heels of this big, renaissance that Michael Keaton's had and has become so, beloved again, watching him step back into the role that, made him the huge superstar that he became for a time. I think people are really, really excited about that. I mean, even as Vogel said, the most casual moviegoer, as we were watching that first trailer, when people you see the silhouette of his particular Cal with that bum, 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 bum. I mean, people know that music. Like that's not quite Star Wars and Indiana Jones, but that's really up there. Where I don't think it doesn't quite get to the number you're thinking, Johnny, is I don't know if the DC universe prior to this has had long enough arms to kind of reach into for folks to see the movie again and again and again. Like Spider-Man No Way Home, you're still dealing with the MCU. And you're coming off Eternals, which did not set the box office on fire, but you are still in the wake of Endgame and that glow that it had, and bringing in Tobey Maguire, bringing in all the original bad guys, bringing in Andrew Garfield. Like there were just so many things behind that. Andrew Garfield being up for Best Actor that year. I mean, there was just so much there that I don't think The Flash quite has as many bullets in the chamber, but that does not mean that it's not going to make a ton of money.
Yeah, and I'll be curious to see, because I mean, I saw some people already on Twitter, and look, obviously people are going to bring this up, talking about the Ezra Miller stuff and the controversy around Ezra Miller and what they did and all of that. And some people have been snarky about it, like, putting gifts of people drinking tea going, y'all just going to go crazy for this guy who was grooming people and assaulting people just because you want to see an old man in a Batman costume. I've seen those tweets, right? So I wonder, because a lot of people think, there's a contingent who think that the reason West Side Story didn't do well is because of the accusations against Ansel Elgort. Will these accusations, I wonder, against Ezra ultimately affect the box office? And if they don't, Mike, do you think this is a sign to the studios that, like, you know what, just write it out and you'll be fine? Most of the public doesn't care. Even though it's a bad sign, it's a bad message to take. Is that...
most people, when it comes to entertainment, like, this is something everyone needs to struggle with on their own. Like, and I've said this about Harry Potter. You can say it about Ezra Miller. You can say it to everybody. Like, everybody needs to make their own choice. If you don't want to support something because you feel really strongly about it, I think that is everyone's personal choice and it's completely valid, and you do what you want to do. But the fact of the matter is, most people, when it comes to entertainment, are going to be entertained.
Yeah.
I think studios have a responsibility to work with the best people. I think we're going to talk a lot about this when we talk about the James Gunn article that's coming out right now that just came out that we're going to discuss as our main story. But when you look at most people's viewing habits, if the entertainment is really, really good, people want to be entertained. They want to go see good stuff.
Yeah.
There might be people in that you don't agree with politically, behind the scenes. There might be people who have a history of yelling at people, violent behavior, and they're still getting cast. And like, everybody needs to make those decisions. I think studios should always work with the best possible people and don't work with assholes if you can help it. And particularly if someone is abusive or assaulting people, you shouldn't work with them. But when it comes to people's political views, or are they a vaxxer? Are they an anti-vaxxer? Do they believe this or they believe that? There's a lot of people out there that I really vehemently disagree with their politics, but they make good stuff. And there's things that I'm like, well, that was good. I wish it wasn't, but it was. Yeah. And so I think it's like, I think when we get into these big discussions about everyone on Twitter getting mad at everybody because, well, you're supporting this, you're not supporting that. I'm like, look, I just don't know that really moves the needle that much in the big scheme of things beyond the scope of Twitter.
Right. Fair point. Shannon, any final words on this?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think even if this movie does come out and say it does make $2 billion, say you're right. I don't think this necessarily means that Ezra Miller is any studio's go-to performer.
Right.
I think the next studio that decides to, work with Ezra Miller again, they're the ones that are really taking the risk. I think people know that Warner Brothers, as Vogel said, really bent over backwards to try to make this work because they knew they had such a good product.
Yeah.
But I don't think this necessarily rescues Ezra Miller's career, no matter how good that performance is, because they're a compromised product right now. Right. It's like, okay, we want to get the Flash out and make that money, but at the same time, it's like, who's going to take that risk to put Ezra Miller in your movie again? Like, that will be the real sign.
Yeah, good points. Okay, well, let's take. Anyway, it's coming out real soon, so it's on your. I think it's June 16th. It's coming out, so put it on your calendar. Get ready for this one, and we're gonna jump into a trailer for this one and a bunch of other trailers right after we come back after this. All right, Shannon McClung, take it away.
With trailers. 3 features, 3 all on the big screen, starting with what we've been talking about, The Flash. On the heels of CINEMACON, we got not just one trailer, we got 2 trailers. We got the new, the second domestic trailer, which shows off, a whole lot more of Michael Keaton's Batman. We get a little bit more of Sasha Calle's Supergirl. And we also get an international trailer courtesy of Japan. And, from my days of living in Osaka and seeing the Japanese trailers for American movies, it brought me back. I mean, it was Minasan. I mean, it's like they have the same trailer voice guy that we have here, or rather they have their version, and it's so funny. The Flash trailer, what can you say? I mean, I think people were already jazzed about this movie, and then looking at what another sampling of what we're gonna get, not just in terms of the visual spectacle that we knew was going to be there, but also the character stuff. I mean, seeing that connection that Barry has with Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne. I mean, it was just powerful, powerful trailer. But I'll throw it over to you, gentlemen. What did you think of our second look and third look at The Flash?
Mike?
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. No, it's one of those. I mean, that you can just. Yeah, we've talked about this before on certain things, but we've talked a lot about it on our Picard reviews this season with Picard season 3. You can tell when a movie's got swagger. You can tell when they just know that they know what they're doing.
Yep.
Marvel Phase 3 had a lot of this. Like, there was with Infinity War, with Endgame, like, where it's just like, oh, guys, we already know we did it. Now we're just going to show you that we know that we did it. And everything about these trailers, like the you want to get nuts, let's get nuts. that final shot of Batman falling out of the bat plane with the bat plane like framed by the moon, 1989 Batman style. You just know that this movie's gonna have, and this is what a lot of the early reviews are saying, like their first reactions. You just know that they've got the right balance of like, they know the Easter eggs, they know the nostalgia, but then when you hear what's being talked about in this second trailer, they know what their story is. Barry lost his parents. It's what made him who he was.
Right.
He went back and fixed it. Bruce Wayne has been dealing with it his whole life. So you got Michael Keaton talking about how his whole life has been devoted to this. And then you've got Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne talking about our tragedies define us. You don't get to take it back. Right. So you can just see, and then I'm not quite sure how Supergirl's falling into all this, but she has her own tragedy.
Right.
Like, you know, so like the fact that you've got all these three characters that are all dealing with this stuff, and Barry like kind of, you know, going in and messing with everything and it having a bad result, like, this is just, it is a Flash story. Like, the source material that it's based on is A+. And even though this is not specifically that version from the comic, you can tell that it's hitting those right emotional beats. And it's a joy when you watch something and you're like, oh, they fucking got it. They fucking got it. The Japanese trailer, it did show some more stuff. You got some good scenes, but mostly I'm with Shannon. I just enjoyed watching a Japanese trailer. It's a very different vibe. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start watching more Japanese trailers.
Yeah, right. They come with subtitles. I'm down. Yeah, these were two great, fun trailers to watch. And, you know, the first one, I was so caught up in watching the first trailer. I said in my reaction, I was just like, this is cinema, man. I don't care what you say. People want to get mad about superhero films not being cinema. It's bullshit. If just from a trailer that you can tell a film is using all of the available assets for creating a film and pushing the boundaries of what you can do with the medium of film, telling a grounded emotional story and affecting people by the end of the movie, then that's fucking cinema. And so to me, when I was watching this trailer, I'm like, this is incredible. The scope, as Shannon mentioned earlier, from 1989's Batman to the Snyderverse to beyond, it is all here, and we're seeing it in different spots. And yeah, we don't get Henry Cavill as Superman, but I'm much more excited seeing Sasha Calle, and especially in the second trailer, which showed us a little more of her emotion, or in the Japanese trailer, a little more of what she's doing in the film. And in the domestic trailer, the first trailer, we got to see her anger. We got to see her frustration, her saying, what did you do to Barry? And that scene of her flying in the sky, holding what is one of the berries in her hand, in her arms, is just an incredible shot. So Muschietti here, just direction-wise, looks to have created one of the most fantastic superhero films we're ever going to see. So from both sides. And in the second trailer, we got more with Barry. And I know I did a reaction as well to that one last night. And I said, well, it's probably because, you know, overseas, people don't care about the Ezra Miller accusations and issues. And they're much more lenient and open about that kind of stuff. Not saying that they condone it. It's just that they're not worried about it as much as we seem to be here. So they focused on putting more of Barry front and center. So you got more of the jokes, more of the humor of it all, but still the stakes were there, you know, but the interactions between the two Barrys, that was a lot of fun to see in the second trailer. So, you know, to me, both of them did the job of getting people excited, whether you were kind of trepidatious about Ezra or not trepidatious about Ezra. You had one place to go, no matter how you felt, to enjoy a trailer for the film. So it was great.
Two trailers, two Barrys. It all connects. Well, The Flash comes out June 16th, just in a little bit here. And
Whoa. What just happened?
No, he just blipped. He just blipped.
Oh, shit. Is he gone for 5 years?
Imagine this,
now?
like if this was the MCU, this was the moment that Shannon just got dusted. Just in the middle sentence, he's just gone. We'll see him in 5 years. We'll be 5 years older, but no Shannon.
Do you think
no
he'll grow in the 5 years? Do you think he'll grow in when he comes back from the blip?
Oh,
there he is.
Oh, it was a short blip. He's back, everybody.
Well, that was shocking.
It was. We thought
was it as sudden for you all as it was for me?
Yes. Michael thought you'd gotten blipped. And we were like, what's it going to be like 5 years from now? What's it going to feel like?
So our second trailer, let's just pick up where we were.
Yeah, sure.
Our second trailer, we talked about a little. a little bit earlier, we got our first trailer for the third Equalizer film. So, this is, Denzel Washington and Antoine Fuqua. First one came out in 2014, and this was, they had worked together before, a couple times, and this movie was shockingly good. I don't think anyone really expected much out of it. They didn't think it was going to be a bad film, but it was like, okay, this is based off of an 80s procedural. Okay. Ended up being fantastic. Denzel Washington kicking all sorts of ass. Just a lot of fun. A few years later, 4 years later, I believe, we get the Equalizer 2. Pedro Pascal's going to be in it. It's like, all right. And that one under-delivered a little bit to the point that it's like, did we need a third chapter in this story? Well, based off this trailer, apparently we did, because Denzel Washington is being reunited with Dakota Fanning, who, if you've seen Tony Scott's Man on Fire, it's like, oh, fantastic that these two are together again. Robert McCall, he's relocated to Italy. He's confronting some things he's done in the past. He makes himself a nice little life with some of the local Italians. And then we find out some of those folks get in trouble with the original mob, the folks, the Italian, the real Italians, not the ones from New York and New Jersey. So watching Denzel Washington inhabit this role again, even though I saw no need for this movie, watching him as Robert McCall, a third at bat as Robert McCall, I think is really exciting. But gentlemen, I'll throw to you. What did you think of our first look at the Equalizer 3, Johnny?
Yeah, I loved it. Are you kidding? This one spoke my language like nobody's business. I was kind of, I'm with you, Shannon. The second one was kind of underdelivered. I worked the junket for that, so it's a life highlight to get to interview Pedro and Denzel in the same junket. That was awesome. And then the film was kind of like, and so I was like, So this one, though, looks a lot of fun. And this is the standard action thing, right? Once you've done 2 installments, you got to go to Europe. That's how these things work. You got to go there. You got to try to find peace. You got to figure things out. Where are you going? And of course, those people you befriend in your small little town where you think you're going to be untouched. Rambo went to a fucking Buddhist monastery up in Thailand somewhere, and Richard Crenna still found him. This guy here, this guy's in Italy, and now he's taking on the mafia, which is so interesting. When I reaction, I was like, wait, what? The mafia? He's taking on the mafia in Italy. So just the guts of it all, I think, is great. And he's still badass. I mean, I just remember, the last time I think saw Denzel on screen was the Macbeth movie. So seeing him come in with something like this, where he's looking like he hasn't lost a step, being a badass, and the little moments that he has in the restaurant and grabbing that dude's wrist, being like, this is this. If I go to level 4, you're gonna shit your pants in front of everybody. Like those little things. And we only get Dakota coming in like right at the end, right? There's them at the press stuff for this. So it's really cool to see them together from Man on Fire, but we only get a little bit of her right at the end. So I don't know what her role is going to be, but overall, this was badass. It feels like a return to form like the first one, kind of like John Wick, where the second one was kind of like, and the third one really kind of came back to the roots of the first one. And the fourth one was fantastic. So hopefully this isn't the end of the series, even though Denzel keeps saying it is, but this looks like a lot of fun. What do you think there, Mike?
I'm going to tell everybody something. So some days when we're getting ready to do a Geek Buddies, these two are texting and they're like, what are we going to talk about? What trailers are we doing? And then I'm busy. I'm like watching a Strawberry Shortcake cut. I'm making notes. I'm like, doing my thing. And so I kind of catch up at the end. I'm like, so wait, what trailers are we watching? And then they tell me, and sometimes I go, fine. I don't want to watch this shit. And then I have to go watch a trailer. And I'm like, do I need an Equalizer 3? Who the fuck cares? I guess I'm going to talk about this thing. And then I watch it and I'm like, I never saw Equalizer 2, but I'm going to go see this one. I'm in. I tell you. No, it's a great, whether or not the movie's good, it's a great trailer. And it is one of those trailers that like, look, this could be Equalizer 3. This could be Denzel does Italy. And I would have been like, it's a standalone movie. I'm like, I'm in, let's go see it. But like, it was just a great setup. It's a great trailer. And it did make me realize that, and John Wick has sort of ushered it. There's always been this movie. I'm not saying John Wick is the first one, but John Wick's success has really ushered in this era of I am a brutal, super violent person, but I'm also a sweetheart.
Yeah.
And I don't want to violently kill you, but I will now proceed to violently kill everybody for the next 2 hours. Like it's like really like, and I'm like, you know what? Sign me up. I'm in. I want to go see it.
It's the Bruce Lee handbook, right? I don't want any trouble. All right, let's have some trouble. And it's basically, that's what it is. Yeah.
It's what I don't know your all's opinions of these movies. I think we're probably on the same page. It's what Tom Cruise tried to do with Jack Reacher. That Denzel is succeeded with the first Equalizer, and hopefully he'll be succeeding with this one as well.
Because Denzel's able to do a thing, and look, I think Tom Cruise is an A+ actor, but this is one of the few things Tom Cruise can't do. Denzel Washington in this trailer is dead eye.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he's just sitting there, he's like, you gotta get out of here. And that mafia guy's like, you give me a warrant? Yeah, there, that just like that dead-eyed look that's just like, I have no issue doing the worst possible thing. And Tom Cruise, he's too charming. He's got that little Tom Cruise in his eye. He can't get rid of it.
He's got the twinkle. Denzel looks like an MMA fighter who's about to take you apart. Well, this latest chapter of the Sequelizer comes out September 1st, and that brings us to our last trailer for Next Goal Wins. So this one had a really, really interesting path to the big screen. One, this is coming from Taika Waititi. Mm-hmm. This is based on a true story. There's a documentary that goes by the same name, I believe from 2015, but it's about a Dutch coach, Dutch soccer, European football coach, who gets in charge of working with the team from American Samoa, who had the record for the worst defeat in the history of soccer. This movie he actually finished before Thor: Love and Thunder. So it had been sitting on the shelf for a little bit.
I didn't know that.
And they ended up, one of the folks who was a supporting cast member was Armie Hammer. Mm-hmm. So they actually went in and reshot. He was recast. Will Arnett came in. Wow. They reshot all of his scenes with Will Arnett. And coming in, like watching this trailer, just looks like a charming, charming movie. Again, after... I felt pretty underwhelmed by Thor: Love and Thunder, really wishing that maybe for his next film, he'd go back to that Hunt for the Wilder People, Jojo Rabbit. That seems like what he's done, even though he actually did this before Thor: Love and Thunder. I thought this looks charming. Michael Fassbender as a curmudgeonly coach, I think is going to work wonders. Gentlemen, what did you think of our first look at Next Goal Wins?
Mikey, what did you think?
You know, for all that I don't love sports, I love sports movies. Like, you give me a good sports movie and I'm in, and this looks like a good sports movie. Yeah, I think to your point, I realize this, like, you know, as soon as Taika Waititi's name comes up, I don't like Thor: Love and Thunder particularly. I don't think it's that great, but the fact that I don't love that movie has no effect on my love for Taika Waititi as a writer-director. Like, I love his voice. I love his vibe. I love the types of stories he tells. I love the way he tells them. And everything about this trailer feels like what I love about Taika Waititi. So yeah, I'm super down. I agree with you. I think that sometimes after you go through the Marvel machine, I think the Star Wars machine, the DC machine, they're all these, when you do like the giant studio brand name genre, all the pressure in the world on you, this is the thing you want to do. Like, I know he did it beforehand, but like, This is the thing that you want to sort of be like, to remind you of why you like doing this in the first place. Because I think sometimes those giant movies can just ultimately just, even when you succeed and make it and it works, I think the process is just grueling.
Yeah, I champion these little soccer films. I mean, years ago, I took my fellow geek buddy Michael Vogel to a gay German soccer movie.
That was a great movie.
It was a great movie. We had a really nice time. And like, nobody went to see this movie, but I was like, I saw the trailer. I was like, Mikey, we gotta go. This is the movie.
It's the movie that made me gay. No, I was so gay before that.
A movie about balls made you gay. Copy that.
I put some scoring in the balls. Yeah, listen. So I love these little quiet soccer movies or football movies because we don't get a lot of them in the mainstream. So when we get a little bit, I know people like the Wrexham stuff now, and of course, all these people all of a sudden love football. Some of us have been here for decades, but whatever. So it's cool to see it getting the love that it has always deserved, in my opinion. So something like this looks like a lot of fun. And I know this story. I remember this story because as a avid World Cup guy, I'm always up on the news of this kind of stuff. And Thomas Rongen there it is a Dutch American coach. He came over and he managed my DC United in MLS for a couple of years. He also managed the under-20s for the United States on 2 separate occasions, by the way, and got them into the under-20s World Cups a couple of times. So he's very much a name in the U.S. soccer circle. And so when this happened, and I don't know if it's exactly how they're saying it in the movie, it's like, you're either unemployed or you take this job. I don't know how that a soccer coach can go wherever he wants. So the fact that they were like pitching that, I wonder how they're going to make that work.
Movies that are based on a true story are always 100% accurate.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. Yes. But this looks like a lot of fun. And Fassbender took that break, has been taking a break for focus on family and racing. So this is, as you said, Shannon, this is something he shot a while ago because he's been kind of taking a break recently, and he's about to come back with a bunch of stuff, of course. But like, he took a break. So this looks like a lot of fun. It's probably not going to make a lot of money, but I bet it's going to be one of those like heartwarming type films and the humor is 100% there in every single joke they have in the trailer. So it has that kind of feel to it. And I love that Taika really elevates the humor and the people who are in that area of the world that he was born in. Mm-hmm. I love that he likes to do that kind of stuff. And I think it's great to see that. If, Guy Ritchie can do his British gangster films, Taika Waititi can do these films that are set in, Australia or New Zealand or American Samoa and have this Polynesian feel to it and all of that. So I think it's great. So it looks like a lot of fun.
Well, and the last time Taika Waititi did a heartwarming film, he walked away with a few Oscar nominations. So the fact that this is coming out in November, it would not surprise me if they're feeling pretty confident about Next Skull Wins, which comes out specifically November 17th, 2023.
There you go. All right, well, let's take a quick break. We'll jump into our main topic here and talk this James Gunn story from The Hollywood Reporter and how it connects to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But after this.
Do 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 do.
There it is.
All right. Well, I'm going to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 tomorrow night at a screening here in San Diego, and I'm excited to take a look and wrap this and close this chapter. I'm taking the Lady Outlaw with me, who has loved Rocket from the beginning, so she wants to see how things turn out for Rocket. But this article that dropped with James Gunn being interviewed and Chris Pratt being interviewed and Pom Klementieff and Karen Gillan was really interesting in exploring. Oh, and Sean Gunn as well, exploring the story of James Gunn from when he was let go by Disney. When he signed on to direct the Guardians, when he was let go by Disney, and then the circuitous route with which he found his way back to direct this film, and then end up becoming the co-head of DC now going forward. And there have been rumors that there's friction between Feige and James Gunn behind the scenes. But you read this article, and maybe this is Hollywood stuff, but it surely doesn't feel like there's friction between either one of them. So, gentlemen, what did you think about the article? What stood out for you? What were the surprises or maybe moving moments here? Well, what did you guys take away from it?
I mean, it was a really, really well-written piece. Yeah. Knowing the history and of how things turned out, it was just a really well-written article, and they talk about the way that the cast sort of mobilized in the wake of his firing. And you got to see how folks are different, how people have different approaches. Chris Pratt had a very methodical, all right, how do we do this? Dave Bautista went on Twitter and said, fuck you.
That's my boy. That's how you do it. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I was waiting for the Vin Diesel quote. It's all about family. But he and Bradley Cooper don't pop up in this. But, watching how James Gunn's sort of weird ascendance as an A-list filmmaker. You look at the stuff that he used to do with Troma. You look at things like Slither or Super, where Rainn Wilson was playing a vigilante whose catchphrase was "Shut up, crime." I doubt folks really could have predicted what James Gunn has where he has been elevated to. And, when you reference those tweets that came many years before his hiring, and according to the article, like again, not having done a deep dive on everything that transpired, but according to the article, things that he had acknowledged and apologized for, how they were able to be weaponized because of some of his political stances. Like, that's kind of crappy. And how I think they said it was Alan Horn who was the main guy who did make the decision to get rid of him, and now he's over at Warner Brothers and was a supporter of his to get this job at DC. So, really watching the Guardians panel, the most recent one at Comic-Con last year, getting to see how this cast, at least, and again, maybe this is the Hollywood spin machine, but watching this cast be on stage together, getting to watch the trailer together, knowing that this is the last time this particular crew is going to be riding together, it seems like there is a lot of affection for each other. And knowing like when a cast is so loyal to a director like that, it's a really nice thing to see. I mean, you hear a lot of folks who worked for Zack Snyder say the same thing. Like they they love that guy, and it's the same with the Guardians folks, and how they all sort of when they wrote that letter, and how it was agreed, like it's all of us or none of us, and they all did it. So really well written article. Hope that the movie is a tenth of what it seemed like it was going to be when we saw that panel at Comic-Con, because just watching the cast on stage together with James Gunn, it was very heartwarming.
It was emotional, yeah. And shout out to Aaron Couch and Boris Kitt, who contributed and wrote on the article. Michael, your thoughts overall on this one?
Yeah, I think like two big takeaways for me. It's a very well written article. It is a great sort of snapshot of like the rise and fall and rise again of James Gunn. But I think, we were talking about it earlier with the Ezra Miller of it all. It comes up with the J.K. Rowling of it all. I think the thing that really struck me was when James Gunn's tweets were trotted out and he was fired and let go. And everybody, like, this was at the height of everybody being afraid of cancel culture. I'm going to get canceled. You're going to cancel me. I'm going to get canceled. And what really struck me about this is, at the end of the day, if you're we never really know. Yeah. All of us on Twitter responding to the latest article, and this guy said this 5 months ago, and this girl did this one time, and this person said this in a back room, and it got out on a thing. Like, we are all responding to stuff about people that we don't actually know.
Fair point.
And we will never probably get the full context of stuff. But the thing that you can be pretty sure about is when all of the people that work with somebody rally around them, that's when you really know what a person is really about. The Harry Potter cast isn't rallying in the way that the Guardians cast rallies.
Yeah.
And I think, that when the James Gunn thing happened and the Guardians cast really got behind him. And I mean, to your point, these Hollywood articles aren't going to completely manufacture something. Like, it's not like the Guardians cast hates each other and they said, hey, here's the angle, let's make you guys best friends. Like,
yeah, exactly.
even if it's being embellished a little bit for PR purposes and they're really blowing it big, they're blowing it big because it really is there. Like, you can tell, like Comic-Con last year, you can tell now, like, this is a cast that really does love and support each other. And when the chips were down for James Gunn, that cast really did circle around him. And so I think it's just a good reminder, at least to me personally, that you read about somebody said this in an interview one time, or somebody did this thing, or somebody got arrested for this, or somebody's accused of this, and you don't really know the truth. But when you start seeing when people distance themselves from someone, or when everybody rallies around someone, that's when you really can say, okay, I think despite what is being spun this way or spun that way, I think that's the thing to really look for, that I always look for, to give myself my own sense of like where should I fall on this? The other thing, and this is one of those hippy dippy Burning Man universe things, but this really struck me as well, was you never really know what's going to happen in life. And you look at how this all happened, particularly like he got fired. Marvel was done with him. Disney was done with him. He was reeling. And by the time Marvel came back around and said, okay, you're back, he was like, cool. By the way, I said yes to Suicide Squad. And here's the thing. Had all of this not happened to James Gunn, he would have done Guardians 3, but he wouldn't have done Suicide Squad. And if he hadn't done Suicide Squad, he wouldn't have done Peacemaker. And if he hadn't done Peacemaker and Suicide Squad, would he be where he is right now writing a Superman movie?
Yeah.
And so I think, again, in a very hippy-dippy kind of way, universe works in mysterious ways. And had he not gone through all of the awful stuff that he had to go through, he wouldn't have had that gap in time. DC wouldn't have approached him, and it would be in a very different James Gunn space right now. He'd still be doing fine. He'd have done Guardians 3. Maybe he'd be lining up to do some next big Marvel series or some other thing somewhere else, but I don't think he'd be sitting there writing Superman Legacy. So I think that that's another thing that when, you know, we all deal with this stuff, you lose a job, you don't know what's going to happen next, something is weird happening in your life, like you have to move, you have to do weird things, like you never quite know what the universe has for you. And sometimes like the best surprises are kind of hidden beneath some kind of tragedy.
Very well philosophically said, Mike. Yeah, absolutely. You never know where it's going to go. You never know if you're, you know, and that's the thing. Like, sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down, and you got to navigate both with the equal approach, right? And certainly, I think you make a great point here too about seeing how people rallied around James. And look, he was joking about rape, and there were these female actresses who rallied around him. That speaks volumes. The way he has treated them, the way he is. I mean, Palm Clemente, they tell that story that she burst into tears and cut her appearance short at Comic-Con when she heard that they were going to fire him and let him go and all. So there's certainly, and Zoe Saldana was one of the first people to come over with her significant other to take care of him and Jennifer in this situation. And so you saw people rallying. Karen Gillan is not shy about the compliments that she drops on James as well. And so you see how people react. So I think at the end of the day, what you take away from the story is like, if you're good to people, people will be good to you, even in a jaded, sarcastic, self-involved place like Hollywood. There are people who just want to take care of each other. And clearly he cast this so well, because I think that's an interesting part of the article as well, is talking about the casting choices that he made and the things he fought for. And like, he didn't want Pratt. I mean, how much is the guy from It's Sunny in Philadelphia going to kick himself in the ass knowing that he was the second choice, and how his life would have completely changed had he actually gotten Star-Lord. But Chris Pratt, he had to be forced. And when he saw Chris Pratt and the connection and the chemistry with him and Bautista, boom, that settled that. And then Zoe and bringing everybody in. So clearly he cast this with a bunch of actors who genuinely like each other or genuinely connect with each other and connect with him. And so the fact that they were willing to rally around him and defend him, and Chris going above and beyond. I mean, you're bringing in Maria Shriver, you're bringing in the Kennedys. That's massive. That's like fucking royalty, American royalty. You're bringing in Maria Shriver. Of course, he ends up marrying her daughter, but like that, to get her opinion, not a lot of people can call on Maria Shriver, noted journalist, to be like, hey, will you look over my shit and edit it and get this right? And if everybody can sign it and see if it's good enough for people to sign. So, I appreciated the efforts all around and how the reaction was, and that Chris, of all people, was the one who was like, it's going to be better. And the way they treated Chris's faith, that's something a lot of people have been making fun of. In the article, you see that it's a strong thing with Chris. What he does with it was beliefs, opinions. That's fair to criticize, whatever, but you can tell that's a deep thing for Chris. And so him doing passages, him calling him, or doing these kinds of things, him fumbling that screen test, and James having to kind of guide him through it and eventually get him on the right path there. All of that speaks volumes from a director who cares about his actors. And sometimes you hear those stories about directors that look at actors like movable props, and you don't hear these kinds of stories around those directors. And there's a reason for that, because people want to connect with people. We're all a bunch of massive insecure motherfuckers. So someone that comes along and believes in you and you believe in them back, it really gives you a strength. And so I love that permeates off the article.
Yeah, I think another thing that I thought was really nice about the article that I thought was interesting is, sometimes, and this can be the Marvel universe, it can be the Star Wars universe, it can be the DC, it's any of the big universes. Yeah. Directors come in and it almost feels like they get eaten up by the machine. That the DC universe or the Marvel universe or Star Wars is bigger than they are. Like, they're just struggling to tell a story, but it's like it's just all the special effects and all the executives and everybody weighing in. It just kind of becomes so much. And the Guardians movies, for better or for worse, have never felt like that. They've always felt like James's singular vision. And when you read the story about him not really knowing if he was the guy for Guardians, and then realizing Rocket and where Rocket came from, which he's known from the very beginning. And from everything I've heard is a huge part, and everything we've seen in the trailers is a huge part of Volume 3.
Yeah.
That he really had this vision for what it was. And when you read the article, even when the cast was off doing Infinity War and Endgame, they talk about how the Russos were doing things, and they were like, I'm gonna go call James. I'm gonna go call James. And just the fact that there was this singular vision, and it was his vision, and that even when the actors in the Marvel Universe were in other movies, were kind of like, is it James, what do you think about this? And how he was really honest with certain things that, I mean, the two biggest things that people talk about with Infinity War and Endgame being that James Gunn was like, no, Peter would have shot Gamora, and also Peter would not have pulled the asshole move with Thanos that it's like he has a slightly different vision. And I think that's really a similar thing happened with Taika Waititi and Chris Hemsworth with Thor when it came to the Russos. And I think it's just interesting to see the loyalty that they have to him creatively with this world that he's created.
Another part, Shannon, let me get your thoughts on this, Michael, as well. I did feel it was a little bit like you've got the ego of James Gunn coming through here when he said that he can connect to Superman. He said, I completely relate to Superman because he's everything I am. He's somebody who's an outsider who feels like an alien, but also the ultimate insider because he's fucking Superman. And that's kind of like what I feel like. So are we going too far, or is that him just kind of maybe, using a little bit of comparison, but not really saying that he's, or seeing himself as Superman? Because Superman wouldn't make jokes about rape or pedophilia, so just throwing that out.
Right, but this was a younger guy who made a mistake. I mean, and this is over a decade after the fact.
Yeah.
So I think comparing himself to Superman, I think he's looking at the position that he is in as the co-shepherd of the new DC universe. And so there is a Superman-like quality there. And I don't think it means like how, look at me, I'm so great, I'm so awesome. It's like, I got a lot of power here, and I want to make sure that I'm using it correctly.
Yeah.
And also the whole thing about him being the outsider. I mean, think about where he came from. Think about, again, the kind of schlocky little movies that he used to make. So it's suddenly it's the, not another teen movie, like the girl with the ponytail and the glasses suddenly takes them off, and you're completely different. Like, no, same person. just put some context in.
I was just talking to a bunch of animation students, and we were talking about imposter syndrome, and I said it, and I think this is really what James Gunn is saying. I was like, one of these students asked me, they're like, how do you deal with imposter syndrome? And I'm like, you don't. Everybody has it. I was like, it never goes away. You have it forever. So congratulations. I was like, the only good news about imposter syndrome is that everybody has it.
Yeah.
So when you're in a room and you're feeling like you don't belong there, you just kind of look around and realize that everybody else in the room kind of also feels like they don't belong there. And I think James Gunn, what he was saying is the ultimate version of that. Like, sure, he's James Gunn. He's building the new DC universe. Like, he's in the world of geekdom, he's about as high as you can get. Like, you've reached the pinnacle. He's still got imposter syndrome. He's still the nerdy kid in the back of class, making movies with his video camera after school. But so he still feels like the ultimate outsider, but he's currently the ultimate insider. So like that's I think what he was saying.
Yeah. Anything more that stood out in the article for you guys? I mean, how he got Nebula's voice to be on point there with the combo of Marilyn Monroe and somebody else,
Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood, yeah.
I felt like, what I felt like when I read that line? It's like in The Birdcage when Nathan Lane walks like John Wayne, and he was like, was that right? And Robin Williams was like, it was exactly right. I just never knew John Wayne walked like that. She said that. You're like, oh yeah, like do like Marilyn Monroe, Clint Eastwood. And I was like, that is exactly how Nebula talks. I've never realized that that's what it was, but that is 100% accurate.
It's crazy because I've always felt it sounded familiar, but I could never quite place it. And then when I read that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense right there. Perfectly.
I drunkenly told her at Comic-Con that it was weird to hear her talk in real life.
On her Scottish voice?
Yeah. And then I did. And she was like, why? And I was like, because in the movies you talk like this. She thought that was very funny. I was also very drunk.
Uh-huh.
I watched this happen. Half that story is accurate.
Shannon, I don't want to tell the viewers what vodka soda you were on at that point, but I don't think that your viewpoint at that point in the evening was accurate either.
It was shiny and perfect.
Well, I mean, before we get in trouble, the thing that's great here too about the article is seeing the emotion at the end and talking about how, he had that moment where it really hit him, the journey he'd been on to end up back on this set, end up directing these actors, end up getting a chance to direct these actors saying goodbye to some of these characters. Because clearly it seems like from the article, Zoe Saldana is done. Chris Pratt seems to be done. Plum Clementieff seems to be, she's on the fence. Batista said he's done. So clearly this is, one of those heartwarming stories in Hollywood where someone gets, someone, as you said, Mike, the rise, fall, and then rise again of James Gunn getting to be back on that set and getting chances to direct them as they say goodbye to their characters and then move on, having directed all three of these installments. That's a rarity in Marvel.
It is. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot more in a couple weeks after we've all seen the movie, but it'll be interesting to see, James Gunn has clearly told the story he wanted to tell.
Yeah.
And he's off doing other things now. So these three Guardians movies are a complete beginning, middle, and end finished story.
Yeah.
Now, if the Guardians go on within the MCU and we bring in a different director, a different vision or whatever, I just really hope what they do is not try and stay in the James Gunn version of it.
Right.
But I hope they take a lesson from what James Gunn brought to the MCU and let this new person, whoever it is, if they do continue to go on with Guardians, really put their mark on it. That here's a new Guardians with a new vibe and a new everything. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, agree.
Well, and to Vogel's Burning Man hippy dippiness of things worked out the way they were supposed to work out, there were a lot of people that were up for the Guardians roles. Momoa allegedly, according to a guy that I worked with on The Mentalist, Momoa was who they wanted. That's who Marvel wanted for Drax. And that didn't work out. The guy that I had chatted, the guy that I worked with on The Mentalist, he had auditioned for Drax. He didn't get it. He got offered another role and then ultimately wasn't able to do it because of Mentalist scheduling. But also Chadwick Boseman, he read for Drax. Wow. But because of them seeing him for Drax, they're like, well, he's not the guy, but you know what he would be the guy for, knowing that like Glenn Howerton, poor Glenn Howerton,
I know, right?
Who has had so many brushes with big roles and just hasn't quite landed yet. I mean, it's just funny how the alchemy of that kind of works, that you get the cast that you're supposed to get. And then talking about the fall, how that cast was there for you when you were kind of at your lowest point.
Means a lot for sure. All right, well, there you go. That's our episode of the Geek Buddies. Thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate it madly as always. Please remember just before we go, I'll remind you all, I want to let you all know we are going to do another episode later on this week on Friday, talking about all the stuff that happened at CinemaCon. So, for those of you may be wondering, like, why haven't they covered all this stuff like Craven? We are going to have a CinemaCon only special episode that will be happening on Friday. I'll put it out as soon as we record it. There for you all. So just let you know before you leave, just put that in your calendars and look for that on Friday. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at Geek_Buddies, on Instagram at _Geek_Buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Mikey?
If you liked all this geek content and you can't wait to see what we're going to talk about on Friday, then here's what you can do to help us keep doing what we are doing. Hit that like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page, leave your comments below. What did you think of everything we talked about today? Are you excited for The Flash? Are you upset about Boba Fett and Mandalorian? Let us know all of it below. Definitely check out that James Gunn article. If you are listening to us on a podcast, go ahead and leave us some stars, leave us some comments, helps us go up in the rankings so more people can find us. And as always, the best thing that you guys can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you all so much, and take care of yourselves. Be well, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of the
Geek
Buddies.